How long have you been here? The young doctor looked at her. Stephanie blushed. 3 days only. I see. That's why I haven't seen you. What's your name? Stephanie. Stephanie? I'm Matthew. The doctor went down the hall, and the nurse, who was filling something out in the register, immediately turned to Stephanie. Don't even think about it. Stephanie looked at her, perplexed. Don't think about what? Don't even think about looking at Matthew. He's been the headmistress's lover for a long time. Any of the girls tried, they went right out. And with a salary like that, you know it's not easy to find a place. I wasn't even going to. I came here to work. So do it. Stephanie went to deliver the medicine and thought to herself, it's strange. Matthew is young, but the head of the department is about 45. How can that be? But she pushed the thought away. It didn't make any difference to her who was sleeping with whom, and she didn't really like Matthew. At lunchtime, the head nurse came into the nursing room. Girls, we need to help Madison. Wash the patient in room 7. Any volunteers? Everyone rushed in at once. Someone was in his bag, trying to find something in it. Someone suddenly wanted coffee and started making it. The patient in room 7, or rather the patient, weighed 150 kilograms. She had a bit of a squabbling character, had a loud voice, and both legs were broken. She had to be washed right on the bed, so Nurse Madison was not able to handle her physically. The patient had no relatives, but she had money, which allowed her to receive treatment in a private clinic. In general, the woman was a very flamboyant figure. She did not allow anyone to come in except her deputy. The patient had some successful business, and she just didn't want anyone to see her in such a condition. The doctors knew about it and even said that she had broken her legs by buying some super trainer with which she wanted to lose weight. In general, no one knew anything for sure, but everyone knew that the woman was not that simple and quite mysterious. Everyone knew that it was better not to argue with her. Stephanie stood up. Let me help you. It's no problem for me. Besides, it's nap time, so why just sit around? The older nurse looked at her over her glasses. The others spoke at once, moved, and came back of their stupor. Thank you, Stephanie. Nurse Madison is already in the room, so you can go. Stephanie headed toward the room, from behind the door of which swearing could already be heard. It was the patient who was always displeased with everything. Hello. She was silent for a moment, glancing at Stephanie. Apparently, the petite girl had caused her a new wave of indignation. Couldn't you find someone more relevant? Stephanie tried not to escalate the situation. Don't you think I'm very strong? The patient, having calmed down a little, grumbled. Strong she is. Very strong, I suppose. An hour later, Stephanie was released. Strangely enough, the patient behaved well, and Nurse Madison even said afterwards, Stephanie, you must have had that effect on her. The girl smiled. She saw the nurses crowding around the window and Matthew with them. They were all looking outside, commenting merrily. Look, look, lying down again. They were laughing, and Stephanie wondered what they saw there. On the street outside the window, there was no way an ill-dressed old lady could walk down the sidewalk. There was a slight slope at this point, and yesterday's rain had turned to bare ice today. The old lady would take a step, begin to slip, and fall. Apparently, all of this had been going on for a long time, because there were a lot of people standing at the window. Matthew suddenly exclaimed, We have to bet how many more tries it will take. The young nurses laughed, and Stephanie was horrified. What are you doing? She's an old person. Can't believe this. You'd better help her. Everyone looked at her with amazement. Finally, Matthew said, Now let's leave everything and run to help some homeless lady. Who cares if she's a homeless person or not? She's a human being. She needs help. They laughed at Stephanie openly, just as they had laughed at the old woman before. Help? Her? Matthew looked at Stephanie with a smile. Run along, run along. The nurses laughed again. Stephanie turned and rushed to the exit. She could see through the window that the whole ward was watching her, but the girl didn't care. She ran up to the old lady, as she was in just her robe. Let me help you. The woman looked at her with tearful eyes. Daughter, God himself has sent you to me. I really need to go there, and I cannot get through. I've hurt my legs and hands all over, and I can't seem to get through. Stephanie gently helped her grandmother up. You just do not walk at once. Let's first stand. Let's catch the balance. Okay, whatever you say. I wore the wrong shoes. I thought it would be warm, but you see how it turned out. The old woman seemed to calm down, and Stephanie said, Now step carefully and stop again. Don't be afraid. I've got you. They walked through the rough spot in 15 minutes. All the while, Stephanie noticed that there were fewer colleagues at the window. Do you work there too? The old woman nodded at the window. Yes, don't be offended by them. I'm not taking offense. I'm sorry for you. Stephanie, by the way, had already noticed that the old lady wasn't a bum at all. She was clean, and Stephanie could even smell her perfume. She was just wearing very old clothes, even stitched up in some places. Do you have somewhere to go? She laughed. Daughter, of course I do, and I don't live far from here. Well then, good luck to you, and I'll go now because I just got here. Thank you very much. Stephanie ran to the hospital, and the old woman followed her with her eyes, then glanced at the window. There was no one there though. She shook her head. What kind of people are they? Everybody saw, everybody laughed, and only one girl came out to help, and now she's going to get fired for it. No way. She had evidently decided something for herself and walked quickly on. However, she did not go home and went to a beautiful office, which stood almost directly behind the hospital. Mom, what is it with you? Hector, the head of a small but very profitable company, looked at the elderly woman with surprise. Son, my friends and I helped clean up the orphanage today, so we put on something. I do not understand, the man sighed. Mom, don't you feel that you're 72 and that you need more rest? And you and your great-aged friends are completely crazy. Hector, don't you dare insult my friends. Yes, we may be old, but if you knew how much I like to do something useful. Hector sighed. Of course, he understood everything, and he knew the entire company of women just like his mother. They were all mothers of businessmen, had been in touch a long time, were friends. Of course, the initiator of such a work team was his mother. He knew it right away, and then she herself admitted it. There were times when Hector or one of the other children had to pull the elderly ladies out of some trouble. They calmed down for a while, and then went back to their own business. The last time Hector had to get them out of a police station, and they were nervous because the ladies had beaten up a man. Hector didn't believe it at first, but when the police told him what had happened, he grabbed his head. From time to time, the old ladies would shop for the essentials and go to the neighborhood, where mostly the not-so-disadvantaged people lived. They handed out everything they bought to the children, trying to diversify their lives in some way. That time, a drama had played out in their yard. A drunken husband was beating his wife, and a girl of 7 was trying to cover her mother with herself. When the words the old ladies used to try to stop him did not work, they grabbed their canes and rushed into battle. The man was taken to the hospital, and he swore he would never drink again. Mom, you didn't just come here, did you? No, of course, I need your help. I need to stand up for a very nice girl. Stand up? Son, I don't know. All I know is that I could get her hurt. Stephanie walked slowly to work. She wasn't in the mood because yesterday, up to the end of her shift, if anyone passed her, they pointedly clamped their fingers over her nose, as if to indicate that she smelled like a hobo. Stephanie tried not to pay attention, but it was hurtful. She was sure it would be the same day. The girl was right. The first person she met was Matthew. Oh, Stephanie, I hope you've washed all your clothes, and you don't smell like that woman anymore. Stephanie looked at him defiantly. Why? Did it smell? You know, I try not to breathe around you so I wouldn't smell it. A patient from room 7 was being wheeled in a chair past them. Stephanie didn't have time to respond because the patient stopped the nurse who was pushing the chair. Young lady, don't listen to this. If he were a man, he would help this lady. He wouldn't be looking out the window like everyone else. I know your situation, and I think it is those who giggled at windows that should be laughed at. Matthew's jaw dropped, and the lady made a hand gesture to be driven on. Stephanie smiled. And just like that, she turned around and went into the nursing room. And Matthew said after her, I think that the kind that carry the homeless, no place in a private hospital. Some kind of nursing home would do. Stephanie did not turn around, and an hour later, she was summoned by the head doctor. Matthew's head poked into the nursing room. Stephanie, you're wanted in charge. You don't belong here, I told you. You're the kind of person who can stand the stench of homelessness, and they'll welcome you with open arms at a bed and breakfast for some other place like that. Stephanie was frightened. Why? Just for helping a man? She walked down the hall. Matthew walked her out and said goodbye. Break a feather, and smiled very contently. Stephanie, come in. She had only seen the head doctor of the hospital once, so her knees were trembling. He was not alone. There was a young man standing next to him. Stephanie suddenly froze. He had seen him on posters advertising cosmetic products produced by his company. Here, Stephanie, Mr. Hector Ward is here to see us. You know who he is, don't you? Yes, of course. He's come to thank you. Me? Stephanie didn't understand. Maybe he had someone in the hospital who was related to him. The man stepped forward. Her mother had told him the girl was young and beautiful, but when he saw her, he knew that mere words of gratitude would not be enough. He would have loved to take her to a restaurant or give her an expensive gift. Stephanie, you were the one who helped my mother yesterday. She rounded her eyes. Don't look so surprised. They have their own clan of old ladies, trying to make the world a cleaner, kinder place. But it's a long story. I will tell it to you. I don't know how to thank you. I asked your boss to give you a bonus. Maybe you'd like to have dinner with my mother and me at the most expensive restaurant in town. Stephanie said yes for some reason. The man smiled. Then I'll meet you tonight. What time do you finish work? Stephanie was already at the door when the chief physician called out to her. Stephanie, ask Dr. Matthew Fuller to come in to see me. I want to give him some education. That evening, as it happened, they walked out of the hospital building together. Several of the nursing girls, a gloomy Matthew who avoided Stephanie for the rest of the day, and the head nurse, who held him tightly by the arm. A large SUV was parked at the steps. Hector jumped out of it at once. Stephanie, good evening. Please have a seat. A table in the restaurant was waiting for us. She saw the eyes of Matthew, his companion, and the others. She tried to hide a chuckle and got into the car. They drove away, and everyone who came out with her remained standing there. Stephanie had to leave the private clinic anyway. Her future husband didn't force her, but he said that he wanted Stephanie to start her own business. Maybe even non-medical ones. I'm sorry, but it just so happens that I have to leave right away, and I wouldn't want to be without you for a minute, so you have to come with me. When you have your own business, you can snap out of it, and working for someone else means always being tied to a place. Stephanie agreed. When she arrived at the clinic for the last time, Matthew, who happened to be around again, hissed. Good riddance. The air will be cleaner. She didn't even pay attention to him though.